I was reading in some comments on the last video that I did. You know, it's funny, because somebody said something about, oh, they like that kind of video rather than the political ones. Well, the truth is, there's not that much interest in that kind of video. I do them, but like I say, the views are usually about half of what I have been doing. The regular where I'm just a commentary on a situation. But when you talk about things, practical things, like you should know how to use a scrub board, the views are always down on them. I think there's a lot of times, people, I don't need to see that. I know how to do that. Well, a lot of people don't. But the political stuff, it gets a lot of views. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. And really, what I do, I pretty much just talk about whatever's on my mind at the moment. And if that political garbage is bugging me, that's what I'll talk about. But I thought it was funny because that comment, I think it was thank God, not another political video. But like I say, you don't get the views on those. It's not that big a deal. But I thought it was funny because it got a lot of likes, that comment. It makes no difference in what I do. I do what I do. Whatever I feel like talking about. And if, like I say, if the political crap is on my mind, I'm going to talk about that. But I do have some other of the more practical things that you should have learned in school kind of things, or at least earlier in life. And I'll be talking about some of them. But there's still going to be political stuff. It's something, because I have found, it's funny, I mean, if something's preying on my mind, some of this political nonsense that I hear, it'll bug me until I talk about it. And the funny thing is, if I do a video on something like that, if I talk about it and don't upload it, I'm still satisfied. The only thing is I do forget what I uploaded and what I didn't upload. So it gets a little, sometimes I'll talk about something that I thought, oh, I talked about this, and then I realize, oh, yeah, I didn't upload that video. Anyway, that's the story. There will be a mix, it's whatever. I know there'll probably even be a little shooting in there, but that's frowned on. And a lot of that stuff, there's stuff that comes up that I really don't want to make public. Like if I buy a new gun, do I want to make it public that I bought this new gun? I don't think so. I think some stuff in this political climate is better to keep to yourself. So that's just how it'll be. I had to come out here today to pick up this head. This is actually the original head off of my SR500. I had the one time I had put a different piston in and I switched heads to one I had laying around because this head was giving me trouble with the valve sticking. Once in a while, like on a cold machine, you'd start it up or you go to start it up and a valve would stick open slightly. It's because they've got these steel guides and running no lead in gas, you don't get the lubrication that they really need. So you can have a valve that just doesn't quite sit all the way down, which is the same thing as trying to start it with your compression release on, So I switched it out to a different head because I've got, several heads. In fact, that's another 2J2 head laying there. They're the big valve version. You know, the XT runs a small valve. These are the big valve, which are preferable. But what I'm going to do with this one, I've got these bronze guides. And I'm going to put them in. So I had to come out here and pick it up because I got to put it on top of the stove and get it warmed up. Then I've got a driver to drive the old guide out and the new one in. And these work. You know, I don't know how easy it is to find that kind of thing anymore, but they've been around. But it's kind of funny. You know, then you get them in, and you do have to ream them, and I have the 8mm reamer to ream them out. And then kind of got to fit them with a hone to make sure you get just the right amount of clearance. Too much, then the seal don't work. Too little, and you can still stick them. Though, you know, bronze is self-lubricating anyway, you know, so it isn't so bad. I know we used to put a lot of, in Harleys, they had a problem with that. The valves would be sticking when they went to that unleaded gas. So we ended up taking out the steel guides and putting in cast iron, and that worked. But this is the way to go for me on these. It's I think a nickel bronze alloy. But they run them in race bikes, and I think that'll do the trick on it. Because it's very inconvenient, you know, if you come out of some place and you got the bike cold and you go to start it and you got no compression. Well, they got to putz around and try to get that valve to go back up. And it's not like you got other cylinders that are going to take over. You got one. If you ain't got compression, she ain't going to go. So I will fix this head with these. And then someday I'm going to pull that motor out of the SR and make that swap. So I get, this is, like I say, the original head that was in there. Get that back in there. And I want to do some other work on the bike too. But I want to get that head off so I can rebuild that head because that goes on a different SR motor. It's a lot of moving parts here. I've hesitated to tear that SR apart because I have XT parts. Well, I've got one motor apart. Well, two motors apart. I just got one back together that went in the XT. But I've got to do some part swapping on other stuff. And I get to have kind of a tangled mess of stuff where I don't recall exactly what part goes into what. You know, and that can be, I've been trying to box up particular parts that went in particular bikes. Like for the next motor that I build, that's going into a different SR frame. When you use this cam, which is a ProTech cam, but it's a very high performance cam, well, then you get into, you got to be careful. It's got a lot of lift, and you can end up having a machine piston down. And if I remember right, this might be the piston that's going to go in that. Yeah, it's a 10-to-1. You know, I run a low compression in the street bike, but in this other one it's a kind of a screwing around bike, so I can run a higher compression in it. But that's the job. I gotta remember to bring this stuff in the house and my brass hammer. But that's a story. You know, I'll upload what I upload. I know I do intend, maybe tomorrow I'm going to do one on curing meat. I make sausage and jerky and all this sort of thing. I always see people with their, you know, ideas, everything got to be freeze dried. You know, the preservation of meat has been around for a really long time. You know, smoking and all this stuff. It's something you should know. Again, you should have learned when you were a kid, but, you know, I'll go into that. Maybe tomorrow, or maybe I'll never get around to it. I don't know. Depends on what I feel like doing. But for the moment, I got to get this on the stove and get it warmed up so I can get them guides out. And then I got to grind the valves or the seats. I got new valves that go in it. But first, got to get these in and get them fit. But I like tinkering with that stuff. I'm glad I don't do it for a living anymore, but I like tinkering on my own stuff. I watched, it's kind of funny, I'm surprised that, on old bikes, or what are now considered vintage bikes, things from the 70s and even the 80s. I was watching, there's a show, there's a channel on YouTube, I can't remember what the name of it is right offhand, but he goes to a lot of these swap meets and stuff, and people are selling all these bikes. My God, it amazes me the prices people are getting for what they're calling vintage bikes. And I guess, when things are 40 years old, I guess you can call them vintage, but to me, not so much. But when I see something going for like $2,500 that originally cost $600, that's a kind of a shock. But a lot of stuff going for like $3,000, $4,000. It just surprises me. But evidently, it's a big thing now. The guy he goes to a lot of these shows and he videos everything that's there, and he always shows the prices, which is a good thing too. But there's stuff that I wouldn't have looked at twice before. A lot of freakish old stuff that now is worth a lot of money. Crazy, like even a little 125 Honda of mine that I got for 2 cases of beer. I think it's worth quite a little money. Weird world. Values are all kind of kittywampus.